Alright, welcome back to a brand new video. I'm going to show you how to set up OAuth2 with Passport.js. For the third-party provider, we're going to be using Discord, but if you're using Twitter or Facebook, it really works the same exact way. The only difference is the way that you create the application in the developer portal. In terms of logic, it's just the same thing. So the first thing that we'll do, of course, is go to our provider, so Discord. We're going to go to the developer portal, which I am here already, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new application. I'll call this whatever I want, call it OAuth2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy the client ID and the client secret later, because we're going to have to put this in our code, but you can go ahead and save this somewhere like an environment variable or a notepad just for now, just so that you can reference it later. But what's most important is we need to add a redirect URL. Okay, so this redirect URL is going to need to be an endpoint on your server, okay, or some server that's going to handle authentication. In our case, it's just going to be the same API that we have been building in this tutorial. So the URL, let me zoom in a little bit, not HTTPS. So it's going to be localhost port 3001 /API/auth. And I'm going to go ahead and call this path /discord/redirect. Okay, now we have not implemented this endpoint yet. We're going to do that. Okay, so because we're developing in local right now, we're going to have this redirect URL be localhost. Okay, but for production, you would add like your actual production URL. Okay, so we're pretty much done over here. The next step is to set up our code to actually get Passport to work with the Discord provider. So we're going to go ahead and install Passport Discord, which is a package that gives us the Passport Discord strategy. And this is going to allow us to redirect the user to the Discord platform, and they're going to be able to authorize their account with our platform, and then we'll be able to take care of getting all the access tokens, the refresh tokens, all the user details, and anything else that we'll possibly need. Okay, so again, if you're using Twitter or Facebook, they have those strategies that you can install. So if you look over here on the documentation, you can see that you can search for, or not documentation, but the list of strategies. So on the passportjs.org website, you can search for the strategy that you want. So there's Passport Facebook, Twitter, there's a Google. So just search for the one that you want. Okay, and you'll look at, and you'll notice that they all work really the same exact way. Okay, the only difference is just, fields, but again, as long as you understand how to set it up, everything else is a piece of cake. So let's go ahead into our terminal and let's install Passport Discord, and make sure that you actually have Passport installed as well. In case if you haven't watched like the previous episodes, which I do recommend you do watch it, so that way you understand everything. But if you didn't watch it, it's totally fine. You don't really need the previous episodes to understand how this works. But I do recommend it because it shows you how everything is set up. Okay, but just make sure you install Passport Discord, which we have installed right now, and make sure you have Passport installed as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a couple things. So right now, the database that we're using to save everything, we're using MongoDB, and we already have a user schema that we created in a previous episode. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead for now. I'm going to go ahead and just not reference this user schema. I'm going to create a new schema for our Discord user. Okay, just for tutorial purposes, so you all can see how everything is going to work together. Okay, so we have like these endpoints that we created already. So the login endpoint, the register endpoint, but don't worry about these endpoints for now. This is just working with our local strategy. We're going to go ahead and create separate endpoints that works with the Discord strategy. Okay, so ignore these endpoints for now. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there in case, viewers who didn't watch the previous episodes might be a little bit confused and overwhelmed. Okay, but as long as you follow step by step, you're going to be just fine. So the first thing we're going to do is inside the strategies folder, we're going to create a new file called discord.js. We're going to then import Passport from the Passport module. Okay, then we're going to import the strategy class from our strategy module. So if you're using Discord, then this would be Passport-Discord. If you're using another package like Twitter, this would be Passport-Twitter. So now we're going to go ahead and called passport.use, and we're going to pass in an instance of strategy like this. So new strategy, similar to what we did inside the local strategy file. We called passport.use, and we pass in an instance of strategy. Okay. Now this is going to differ a lot from the local strategy because we're going to pass in an object, and we're going to pass in several properties. So the first one is going to be the client ID. So for the client ID, let me go back to Discord. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. So the application ID and the client ID are the same exact thing on Discord, okay? But just make sure you grab the client ID if for whatever platform you're using. Okay, so again, if you're using Google or Twitter, make sure you look for the client ID. They'll usually have their own docs too and show you what you need. But let's copy the client ID and let's paste this here. We need the client secret. So the client secret, you need to make sure that this is kept secret. For demonstration purposes, for tutorial purposes, it's okay that I'm showing you all this, but like I said, for a real application, make sure you have this saved somewhere secret, like an environment variable. Next, we're going to need to pass the callback URL property, and this is going to be our redirect URL that we just added on our application. So you need to make sure that this is matching this right over here. If they are different, you're going to get an error that says invalid callback URI. Okay, so remember, this URL is important because the third-party provider is going to need to make a request to this specific endpoint, and it's going to pass in a query parameter called code, and that code is what's going to be used to exchange with the third-party provider's API to give you the access and refresh token, as well as the details. The next thing that we're going to do, and this is specific to the platform that you're using, so some platforms might not have this scope property, so it's totally optional depending on which provider you're using. But for Discord, if you want to get the user's details, you're going to need to provide the identify scope. And if you want to figure out what other scopes are available, you can actually go over to OAuth2, go to URL generator, and it'll show you all of these scopes that you can actually provide. Okay, and again, go to your own third-party provider's developer documentation. They should have a section that tells you what scopes are available, and it'll explain to you what each scope gives you. So, for example, for Discord, if we add the identify scope, this gives us details such as the username, the discriminator, which are the four numbers at the end of the username, right? It's going to give us the email if we select email. If we select guilds, it's going to give us all the guilds. And it has other stuff too. We're only going to focus on identify. So I'm going to pass this in. And remember, this is an array of scopes. So I can pass an email as well if I want to. Okay. And that is pretty much it. So we're pretty much done with the options part. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pass in a second parameter. Now, keep in mind that this is still an argument in the constructor of strategy. Not use, but strategy. So pay attention. I have comma right over here on line 10, right? This is a second parameter for the strategy constructor, okay? And what we're going to have to pass in is a function, also known as the verify function, which is very, very similar to the verify function for our local strategy. The major difference is that instead of having 3 parameters, email, password, and the done function, we're going to have 4 parameters. And those 4 parameters are the access token, which is the first parameter, the refresh token, the second parameter, the profile, which is the third parameter, and then the done function, which is the fourth and last parameter. Okay, so the access token and the refresh token are sensitive pieces of information, and the access token basically allows you to make requests on behalf of the authenticated user. So you can use this access token to call the API to get pieces of information that might not be available in the profile object. So for example, let's say if I wanted to make a request to an endpoint to get the latest guilds for the user, I would have to use the access token. Okay, the refresh token is used to refresh the access token, and what happens is you're going to make a call to an endpoint that'll give you a new set of access and refresh tokens. Okay, but we're not going to worry about that for now. Our main focus is just saving the users to the actual database and getting it like serialized into the session. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and console log everything for now, just so you all can see what this looks like. we're not going to implement any logic yet, but I just want to show you how we can actually register this to properly work with our application, because right now we've only called passport.use, but we have not actually registered our strategy yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to register it now. So there's a couple things that we have to do. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go inside index.js, our main file. I'm going to go ahead and comment out strategies.local, this import over here, because we're not going to use both of these at the same time. Okay. I just want to focus on showing you how to get it to work with Discord specifically first. Okay, so we're going to separate them. So I'll comment this out for now. So make sure you comment it out as well. And let's go ahead and import strategies Discord. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into the routes file. We're going to go into OAuth.js. So we had this implemented earlier, but we're going to ignore these two endpoints for now. We don't have to comment that out. We're going to go ahead and implement two endpoints. So router.post. And this is going to be /discord. Remember that this router, every route is prefixed with /API/auth because we registered them, or I'm sorry, /API/v1/auth. Let me actually fix that real quick. Let me go into the developer portal again, and let me actually just fix that real quick. Actually, yeah, let me fix that real quick. So /API/v1, there we go. And because if we were to try to get this to work, it would give us an invalid callback URI. Okay, so you got to make sure they match. So /API/v1/auth, and then /discord. So we're going to need two endpoints. We're going to need one for Discord and one for /discord redirect. Okay, so I'll explain what the difference is between these two, and it's actually not even a post request, it's actually a GET request. Sorry about that. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and pass in as a second parameter passport.authenticate. So similar to what we did when we authenticated with the local strategy, but instead we're going to pass in Discord as the strategy. Okay, and we're going to do that for both of these routes. We're going to do that for /discord and then /discord/redirect. Okay, and so what's going to happen is this is going to actually invoke our Discord strategy, which we actually have implemented inside this discord.js file, which we import inside index.js, so it's registered. Express knows about it. Okay, now again, make sure you have passport imported up top here as well. Now I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple handler real quick and just send back a 200. All right, there we go. Okay, so what's going to happen, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and visit this /discord endpoint. So when you want your users to step away from your platform and go to the third-party provider, they're going to have to visit this this specific endpoint. Now again, this could be not Discord, this could be Twitter, Facebook, whatever strategy you're using. Okay, in my case, we're going to visit /discord. Okay, it's going to trigger the passport, the Discord strategy. Okay, and it's going to redirect us to the Discord platform. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that's going to work. So let me go ahead and show you. So I'm going to go to /API/v1/auth, and I actually forgot something. I forgot to go into the strategy file and fix this part, /API/v1, because we changed that in the developer portal as well. So /auth/discord, and you're going to see that right now it redirected me to the Discord platform. So we're not on our own app anymore. We're on the Discord platform. And again, if you're using Twitter, Facebook, Google, GitHub, LinkedIn, whatever provider you're using, third-party provider you're using, it's going to show you a similar screen. Okay, and this is our application, OAuth2. Now, watch what's going to happen. I'm going to click authorize. Okay, now you're going to see that we actually get an error. Okay, and that's okay. Let me show you what happened. Okay, so what happened is we visited this route, this /discord route. Okay, this triggered the Discord strategy, and initially what's going to happen is it's going to redirect us to the Discord platform. Now, we actually were successful in authorizing Discord with our application. And the reason why we know that is because what happens is when authorization is successful on the third-party provider, they're going to go ahead and make a request, a GET request specifically, to that redirect URL. If you can see in the browser, this is the URL that it redirected us to, and there's this code query parameter that gives us this unique generated code. Okay, so this is passed in as a query parameter to that redirect URL that I was showing you that we implemented right over here. Okay, and what's supposed to happen is the Passport is going to take this code from the query parameter, and it's going to use that code and call the provider's API to give us the access token, the refresh token, and the user's profile. Now we're getting an error because I actually messed up. I actually referenced refresh instead of refresh token. Okay, that's why it errored out, and that's why because we're not handling our errors with try catch or .then.catch, it's going to just shut down the server. But that's okay. Let's do this again. So let me go back and let me just click. Whoops. Okay. One thing that I should mention ahead of time is that if you see this error, what this error means is when you actually try to reuse an expired code, it's going to throw an error. Okay, so just make sure you click authorize again, and now you're going to see that it's actually the request is actually still waiting for a response, and the reason why is because we aren't doing anything. But pay close attention to the console now. If you look at the console, you're going to see that we have this object that's being logged. We have the access and the refresh token logged as well. Okay, and pay close attention to the URL that was called. It called Discord, made a request, a GET request to this endpoint, and we have this query parameter called code. Okay, and what Passport did was it took this code, it made HTTP calls to the Discord's API, and it retrieved the access token, the refresh token, and the user's profile. So that's the nice thing about Passport is it encapsulates all of this logic for us underneath the hood. Okay, now what we need to do, similar to the local strategy, is we need to apply similar logic, similar business logic. Okay, so we want to create a new user in a database if the user does not exist. So we first need to search the database for the user. If the user does not exist, we'll create one. If they do exist, we'll return that user. Now, unlike the local strategy, so since we're using OAuth2, we don't even need to worry about comparing any passwords. We don't need to worry about hashing passwords because we're using OAuth2. We're not taking care of passwords anymore, right? Because the user's logged in with the third-party provider, okay? And the way that we know if the user is successfully authenticated is when the third-party provider makes a request to this redirect URL, okay? So let's go ahead and do a couple things. Let me first go into the database folder, schemas, and we're going to ignore this user schema. Okay, pretend like this doesn't even exist. I'm just going to create a new schema called Discord user. Okay, now I'm going to copy this whole thing so I can reuse it, and we're just going to call it Discord user schema. I'm just going to change this to Discord _users. Now, we're not saving the email, so I'll get rid of that. We're not saving a password, so I'll get rid of that. What we are going to be saving is the Discord ID. So let me just go ahead and change this to a string. And you have to ask yourself what information that you need. Typically, what I like to do is I like to save the ID. I don't like to save the username or the discriminator or the avatar because those pieces of information can go stale because the user can always change those pieces of information over time. You could also save the access token if you want to, but just to keep things simple, I'm only going to save the Discord ID, and that's it. I'm not going to save anything else. Okay, so and we'll also just have this created at as well. So let me just change this part over here from user schema to Discord user schema, and that's pretty much it with Mongoose. Very, very simple. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to implement our logic. Okay, so back to our discord.js strategy file inside the verify function. I'm going to go ahead and search for the user. So const discord user equals 08. And we're going to need to import that Discord user model. So let me do that. Oh, what's going on? Okay. Here we go. So let's go back down here. So Discord user find one, and I'm going to pass in the Discord ID. And to get the Discord ID, we can just reference profile dot ID. Okay. So if Discord user, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and return done. And remember, this function, this done function, takes in two parameters. It takes in an error if there are any, and it takes in the user if there are any. So since there's no error, we'll pass in null, and we'll just pass in the Discord user. Now we are going to need to implement the serialize and deserialize user functions, but we'll copy and paste that in just a second. Okay, so if Discord user is found, we'll return. Else, we're going to create a new one. So const new user equals await Discord user dot create. Haven't used Mongoose for a very long time. So it's been a very long time since I've used Mongoose. But let me just make sure. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do Discord user dot create, and the properties that we're going to need to pass in to create this Discord user is the Discord ID. Created has a default value, so we can omit that. So Discord ID. Okay, and so what we're gonna do next is we're just gonna return done null and then new user. So what's gonna happen is when we call done, it's going to serialize the user into the session, and we're gonna need to get those two functions, the serialize and deserialize user functions, inside the strategy. Okay, let me also do this. Let me wrap all this inside a try catch in case there happens to be an error. And if there is an error, we'll return the error object as well as null for the user, and I'll also log the error as well. Okay, so let me just do this real quick. Let me just write some console logs, just so that I can keep track of where the program is at, the state of the program. Created user, no log user. All right, so let's go ahead and see what happens. So let me go ahead and open up MongoDB Compass, and I want to go inside our database. So that's this ExpressJS tutorial database. So if you're not using MongoDB Compass, I recommend you check it out. It's a very useful tool. It's a GUI that allows you to view your data for your MongoDB database. You can also connect to remote databases, remote MongoDB databases as well, such as, for example, like Atlas databases, you can connect to as well. So I'm going to select ExpressJS tutorial. You can see now we have this Discord _ users collection. Okay, and again, ignore the users for now. We're not using the local strategy anymore, so we can ignore it. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what happens if we try to authenticate. So let's go back to the Discord endpoint. Let's go ahead and click authorize. Now you're going to see that the error that we're getting is failed to serialize user, and that's totally fine because we didn't implement the serialize and deserialize user methods yet. And the reason why I left that out is because we're just going to take it step by step. So let me show you what happens if I refresh the database. You're going to see that the Discord _ users now has a document, and look at what that document is. It's my Discord account. Okay, well, it only has a Discord ID, but you can see that it created the record successfully in the database. Okay, so let me just go back down here. You can see that created user. Now let me go ahead and authenticate just once more and show you what happens if I try to authenticate again when my account is already created, or yeah, if my account exists. If we look at the logs, you're going to see that it says found user. So our logic works. Now let's just finish up this tutorial by copying the serialize and deserialize user functions. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. Okay, now if you're using multiple strategies in your application, you only need to have, you need to make sure that you only have these functions set up once. Okay, So you need to make sure you have passport.serializeUser as well as passport.deserializeUser called once. You don't want to have them called in every single strategy file because you're going to run into conflicts. So just make sure you have it called once. In another video, what I'll do is I'll show you how we can actually have an application where we use different types of providers to authenticate. Okay, but local strategy being the main one. Okay, but for now, just pretend like the local strategy does not even exist because we aren't even importing it. Nowhere in our code are we even worrying about the user schema. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me just double check this real quick. So right now we still have everything as user. So let me change this to Discord user inside the Discord strategy. Okay, and we're actually going to change this to, instead of find by ID, because this is a Discord user instance, we're not going to pass in the ID anymore. We're going to pass in Discord ID. For our user schema, we actually was using the MongoDB's ID that was generated. Well, actually, you know what? We can actually still use the ID property because it's actually better to use the MongoDB document ID. I don't want to use the actual the Discord ID. You could if you want to, but I think just using the ID would be a lot better. Okay, so yeah, the only thing that we need to change is just remove the user reference because we're not using user anymore. We're using Discord user. Okay, so let's save and let's try this again, and we should see that this error goes away. So let's click authorize. You can see we get a successful response. Let's take a look at the logs real quick to see what happened. You can see that we found the user. After the user was found, we called the done function. Okay, and what happens there is we then serialize the user into the session. So when we call serialize user, you can see that in the logs, what's happening is serialize user is being logged. We then log the actual user that's going to be serialized, right? And then if you look at the logs again, deserializing user is called, okay? And we're logging the ID of the document, okay? 61F724, 61F724, all right? And then you can see that the user is being logged as well, and we are good to go. And that's pretty much it. If we were to, let me go back to sessions. You're going to see that right now in sessions, I should get some new, I should get like a new, yeah, you can see right over here that this session was just created right over here. Okay, and the user is just this ID of our new Discord user. Okay, so everything works great. All right, so let's just kind of like do a little recap because I know it's a lot of information and I want to make sure we all understand this, and then we'll end the video. So what we did was we set up OAuth2 using a third-party provider. That third-party provider is Discord. Okay, we went to the Discord developer platform. We created an application, and we got the details that we needed, which is the client ID, the client secret, and the callback URL. Okay, which is right over here. Then we installed the passport strategy that we are using for our provider. So because we're using Discord, we're going to install passport Discord. If you're using Facebook or Twitter, you would install the corresponding packages. Then what we did was we created a new file called discord.js. We did very similar things with the local strategy. We registered the Discord strategy. And remember, this strategy class is coming from passport Discord. Okay? In the local strategy, we imported a similar class, but it came from passport local. So they're actually different in terms of implementation. Okay, we create a new instance of strategy, and that instance gets passed in as a parameter or as an argument to passport.use. Okay, and then we pass in the options for the strategy, and that includes client ID, which we got from our application on the Discord developer platform. We pass in the client secret, the callback URL, which is the endpoint that Discord or the third-party provider is going to make a GET request to upon successful authorization, and we pass in scope, which is going to give us the basic details such as the user's username, ID, avatar, and etc., etc. We then implemented the logic for the verify function, and we saw earlier what was actually being logged for each one of these parameters. We saw the access refresh token as well as the user's profile. Okay, and we implemented similar logic with the local strategy. We search the database for a user. If the user was not found, we create a new one. If the user was found, we just return that, and it gets serialized into the session. Okay, and it gets saved into the session store. Okay, and again, if you did not see the previous videos, I do highly recommend you check them out because it's very, very helpful, and it'll help you understand, you know, everything like how session store works, how cookies work, how sessions work, and it will allow you to build persistent applications. Okay, so hopefully that overview made sense. I know it's a lot of information, but the reason why I go in depth in these topics because when I first was learning, you know, how to set this up, I had a really bad time. It was really difficult for me when I was first, you know, trying to understand it. And so I want to make sure that I'm not leaving anything out. And so hopefully I didn't. And, you know, and yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did, definitely leave a thumbs up down below, leave a comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all in my next video. Peace out.